on this episode of Third Floor Design. Hey guys, what's up? My name's Sarah and you're watching Third Floor Design. On today's episode, I'm going to be taking you step by step through 3 different DIY projects perfect for the babies and toddlers in your life. I think they'd also make pretty great baby shower gifts as well. Before we get started, I did want to say a quick disclaimer that none of these projects are my own original idea. I found them all while searching for different ideas on Pinterest. With that being said, we're ready to get started on our first project. For this first project, I'm making 8 black and white double-sided felt images. When babies are born, they only see in black and white and some shades of gray. They're fascinated with high contrast images. This felt project has a ton of contrast. These are perfect for tummy time or for sensory play since the felt is layered on top of each other. It provides a bit of texture. To start, I cut out 8 black and 8 white felt squares that act as the background. The squares are 4 inches by 4 inches. Next, I chose 16 different designs. I just found images on Google and then printed them out, cut them, traced them on felt, and then cut out the felt pieces I needed. In this example, I cut out an elephant and made sure to include a little black circle for his eye and a black ear to add more dimension. To start, I'm hand sewing on the black ear and black eye. The reason I'm hand sewing is because I don't have a sewing machine. If you have a sewing machine, this whole craft would be a little less time consuming and you'll get a neater seam. After the eye and ear are sewn onto the elephant body, sew the whole elephant onto the black background square. For this project, I'm using black thread. You could definitely sew the white elephant with white thread if you wanted to. The next element that I added is 2 pieces of ribbon that I looped and sandwiched in between 2 pieces of felt. This allows you to hang all of the felt images from ribbon, or it just adds a little tag that babies love to play with. I cut my ribbon pieces to 3 inches in length, then I marked my felt 1 inch from either side and about ½ an inch from the top to place the ribbon. I then pinned the ribbon in place and sewed it onto the black square. Next, sandwich a white felt square onto the black felt square. The one I'm using is of an image of a whale. I pinned the 2 pieces together and just sewed a border around the whole thing. I repeated this process 8 times to make a total of 8 front and back felt images. Get creative because you could make any image you want. For this second DIY, we are going to make a fabric cube. Ideally, if you made a bunch of these, they could be used for stacking, but for 1 cube, babies still enjoy experiencing the different textures, pulling on the tags and wooden beads, and squeezing the cube. To start, you'll need 6 different pieces of fabric that are all cut to 4.5 by 4.5 inches. On each piece of fabric, I went ahead and marked off 1/4 of an inch in on each side of the wrong side of the fabric to give myself an idea of where I'd sew the seam. For this project, I ended up using a lot of fabric that I already had. I used fabric from old shirts I no longer wear, fabric from an old pillow, and also a piece of fabric I already had from another project. To start, you will just be working with the row of 4. Choose 2 of the fabrics to start with, fold them together with right sides touching, and then sew 1 seam. Make sure you start about 1/4 of an inch from the side. Again, if you use a sewing machine, you'll get a cleaner seam. Repeat this process for the row of the 4 pieces of fabric. Next, grab your 2 pieces of fabric that will connect to the second piece of fabric in your row of 4. You will choose one to start with, fold it over so that the right sides are together. But before we sew those, I want to show you another element that you could add to this project. For this, you'll need ribbon, wooden rings, or wooden beads. Again, these are all things I already had from previous projects. For my tags, I'm just using white ribbon, and I'm cutting them each to be about 3 inches in length. You can make as many ribbon pieces as you want. For this first seam, I'm just going to use 2 ribbon tags that I'll pin in place and sew down when I sew my seam. When you pin the ribbon tags down, put the right sides of the fabric together and sew it all in place. The next element that I'm going to add is ribbon and wooden beads. This is going to act as a slider where the child can move the beads from one side of the ribbon to the other without them sliding off. To accomplish this, you'll need to sew your ribbon into one seam, then string the wooden beads on and sew the other side of the ribbon into the opposite seam of the fabric. Now that you have all 6 pieces of fabric sewn together in this way, it's time to start making this 3D and building up the cube by sewing more sides together. We are going to pretend in this example that the polka dot piece of fabric is the base and the striped piece of fabric will be the top of the cube or the lid. I messed up when filming this portion because I flipped over the fabric and pretended like you'd be sewing wrong sides together, but you're still going to want to sew right sides together. You'll sew all of the sides of the fabric together and leave the lid or the top fabric square for last. Once it's time to sew the lid or the top, you will only sew 2 out of the 3 sides and leave one of the sides open. You'll need to do this so we can flip the cube inside out and stuff it with filling before we sew the whole thing closed. Once you have it flipped inside out so that all the right sides are now on the outside, you'll stuff the whole cube. Be careful when you do this because you don't want to rip any of your seams. I'm just using filling from an old pillow. Finally, you'll sew a blind stitch or an invisible stitch to close up the whole thing. I'll leave a link in the description of this video to a tutorial of how to complete a blind stitch. For our last DIY, we are going to make a bunny ear teether. This project only needs a few materials to complete. You'll need a wooden ring. I have one that is almost 2 inches in diameter. You'll also need a few pieces of fabric. I'll link the template I used for the bunny ears in the description box. Since my wooden ring was pretty small, I ended up cutting the template down a little bit to be about 5.5 inches in length and about 2 inches in width. When you pin your template down onto your fabric, make sure you have your fabric doubled with the fold of the fabric at the bottom of the template. Repeat this step for the second piece of fabric. For at least one of the sides of the bunny ear, try to have a thicker material like a towel or a sweater. This will help absorb any drool since the child will be using this as a teether. Once you have the 2 pieces of fabric cut and unfolded so that they double in length, go ahead and pin them with right sides together. Sew around the whole perimeter and leave a small hole unsewn. Once the whole perimeter is sewn around, Carefully turn the ear inside out so that the right sides of the fabric can now be seen. We're not stuffing the inside of the ear with anything, so go ahead and complete a blind stitch to close it all up. Lastly, you'll need your wooden ring to loop your bunny ear onto. Start by pinching the middle of the fabric inside the middle of the ring. Take one side of the fabric and loop it behind the wooden ring and loop it under the top part of the ring. Do the same thing with the other side of the fabric. Adjust the fabric by shimmying it up the ring and pull tightly on the ears to give it a good snug fit. The great thing about this DIY is that you can easily take the fabric off the wooden ring to wash it. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to try to recreate any of these DIY projects yourself, I've tried to link as many of the materials that I could find in the description box below. If you liked the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.